a pretty good volume of research that suggests that mitochondria are not just supporting energy, supporting digestion, supporting hormones, these things, but they are really having a much bigger and more robust role in confidence, in motivation, in reward, and in all of these other things that we don't think about.
Welcome to the Advanced Women's Health Podcast, where we empower women with the latest insights and advice on holistic health. From cutting-edge medical research to practical wellness tips, our mission is to help you thrive at every stage of life. Join us as we explore topics ranging from hormonal balance and reproductive health to nutrition and mental well-being. Whether you're seeking solutions for a specific health concern or simply want to enhance your overall wellness, you're in the right place. Let's embark on this journey to better health together. This is the Advanced Women's Health Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to the Advanced Women's Health Podcast. In this episode, it's going to be a little bit different, but one of the things I've been doing and you guys have been hearing on the podcast is just kind of riffing a little bit more, shorter, really high impact podcasts that can give you a really bite-sized understanding of what's going on in the human body. One aspect, one small piece of what you need to understand. And so this is something I've been doing on the podcast, but it's also something that I have been doing as a morning educational content. So, the whole course of this summer, 2025, at the time of this recording, every morning I have been coming on and breaking health into these bite-sized pieces. And so I'm sure I will trickle a number of these different episodes out to you guys because it has been so empowering and helpful for the people who are tuning in live. And honestly, I did it because there's so much content I want to get into the world. I am a speaker. That is what I love to do. That is where it comes easiest to me. That's how I process ideas. And so for me to be able to sit down and record through my thoughts on a concept and to break these big concepts into small pieces has been incredibly rewarding. But one of the things that we're doing is going through the pillars of health. So the pillars of health, insulin and blood sugar, looking at inflammation, gut and liver, nutrient deficiencies, mitochondrial health, aging, and hormonal health, which is all kind of one category. And then we're looking into the nervous system. So those are the aspects of health. They are the underpinnings of every cause of disease that I have seen. And as we're doing all of the research right now for advanced men's health and creating all of our clinical training guides and curriculums, I'm really looking to pressure test that theory in men's health as well. I see a lot of men. Yes, men. There's a lot of you at Advanced Women's Health, but we're creating your own space, your own container. So we got you. But within that, one of the aspects is mitochondrial health and how it impacts hormones and how it impacts everything. So one of the aspects that I talked about a few days before is just what the mitochondria is, how the mitochondria works. So maybe actually I'll put some aspects of that into this episode. So you'll see two pieces. One, an introduction into how the mitochondria works, and then we'll get into how the mitochondria, hormonal health, and hormonal fluctuations are impacting your reward. I didn't actually make these episodes and this morning content recording for the podcast originally. That wasn't the concept. I love the podcast to, again, have these moments of high impact material, but I love the interview style. I find it so powerful to learn as people are talking through subjects. But this episode was just, I swear, channeled from somewhere else because I came on to talk about the research on confidence in the mitochondria. And we do have a fair amount of research to suggest that confidence is an aspect of a healthy mitochondrial health. And that's because of how it impacts hormones, how it impacts nervous system, how it impacts energy production. And there is research to suggest that confidence piece comes from just knowing that you've got enough in the tank. I always say if you're driving down a high-speed highway and your gas light comes on and you don't know where the next gas station is, it strips your confidence that you can get to your destination, even in a small one. It changes that belief. And that happens in our bodies as well. We get into this situation where we really do struggle to believe that we can get to the end of the day, to the end of our goals through something. And so a lot of the research on mitochondrial health comes from that place. But as the research has evolved and as I've spent an immense amount of time researching over the last year, adult female ADHD, perimenopause, hormonal fluctuations, all of the changes in resilience and burnout post-COVID, as all of these things have changed, some other really powerful and important information has come to the surface around motivation and reward. And so in the second half of this episode, I am going to break down motivation and reward and what that means and how that is coming into our day to day life in a new and different way. And I talk about why there have been some of the changes there have been with advanced women's health over the last year or so, because I have seen a really significant change and a really significant difference in how women get well. And so that has become an integral part of advanced women's health. I'm not here to sell you an appointment, right? I'm here to make a change in women's lives in a big way with the best medicine that's available. And so that's really where my passion has come from. That is really what I want to see happen in the world for women. But there has been a change. There's been a change in understanding how brains have worked. And there has been a change in how I think about structuring protocols to give women the best success. And I talk about all of that in the second half of this episode. So I hope you enjoy. If you like it, if you like this type of content, if you want more of that breakdown, if you want a more understanding of some of the things that I talked about in these episodes over the summer, if you like these deep dives, you just screenshot this, tag me in it on Instagram. You can tag the Advanced Women's Health Clinics account or Dr. Sarah_ND. But I love the feedback. I love knowing what's working for you guys, what you're loving to hear. And I'm just really excited to share this episode with you. So have a good one, and I will talk to you soon. All right. All right. This section, I love mitochondria. I started my practice in mitochondrial health. It was just always this kind of, I call it an unlock. So when we're talking about an unlock in a lot of different aspects of health, business, etc., it's like a thing that you move that moves everything else. And mitochondria really is that in such a huge way. It's absolutely such a critical component of health, but because it's this little tiny organelle in your body, we don't put too much emphasis on it. And so what we're going to dive into over the next couple of days is what the fuck is the mitochondria? Why does Sarah not stop talking about it, right? But when we look, one of the things that I really want to break down is that we talk about mitochondria as the energy producing powerhouse of the cell. It is the thing that takes our food, it takes our nutrients, it takes fat, it takes sugar, it takes all of these things and moves it through into a form of energy called ATP. There's a lot of conversation right now, like NAD is very sexy, NMN is very sexy, CoQ10 is very sexy. A lot of these things are channels to production of more energy. And that's why everyone loves them, but they're channels through mitochondrial function. And so we really do, even creatine, fun fact, the way creatine works is it actually works to help to shunt ATP down, like ATP production in a slightly different way. So all of these things that we're talking about with women's health and menopause and brain fog and perimenopause and hormone health and like everyone's obsessed with, fundamentally, it comes down to mitochondria. Stupid weighted vest situation. I shouldn't say stupid. They're lovely. We love a weighted vest. One of my friends was walking around and he's like, I feel like I don't know what happened. He's like, there's all these women. It is the dead of summer. It is so hot. And there's all these women in like wrestler jumpsuits with weighted vests. Like, what did I miss? And I was like, you missed a lot, bro. You missed a lot. And there is research on weighted vests in health, but it's not a weighted vest conversation today. And I think it's just become trendy, which I'm about. But anyways, back on track. When it comes to mitochondrial function, we're really looking at three main things. So yes, it produces energy. That is the main thing it's known for. But two of the things that we do not hear talked about near enough is that mitochondria has a massive impact on the immune system. There's an aspect of your immune system called the innate immune system. That is like your first responders. And we need appropriate mitochondrial health to respond. And given how important the mitochondria is in our defense systems, it's also very vulnerable. So bacteria in the gut, certain bacteria, bad bacteria, make a toxin that damages mitochondria because fundamentally they know that if the mitochondria are alive and well and thriving, then they are going to get eliminated because the immune system will be more active. We know that their viruses hit the mitochondria. There are so many things that when they are pathogenic and want to stay in our body, they damage our mitochondria. But then the other side of it is that we have a lot of other things in our modern world that damage our mitochondria accidentally. This is why talking about environmental compounds is very important. What we put on and in our body is very important. There's all of these things that are very critical to our overall function. And we hear that they're important, but patients come in and they're like, I don't know why it's important. Okay, these things are affecting my hormones, but how are they affecting my hormones? Well, through the mitochondria. It's the third piece. So the mitochondria are working on energy, they're working on the immune system, they're working on hormones. And so when we look at the hormonal piece, you need a healthy, functioning mitochondria to make your hormones. We make estrogen, we make progesterone, we make cortisol, we make all of these hormones at the level of the mitochondria. And so this is very important because how many people walk into my office and say, I'm tired, my hormones are crazy, I'm sick all the time, I'm inflamed. And so what do they get? In a traditional office, they get an adrenal supplement to stimulate their energy. They get a hormone supplement to take care of their hormones. And then they get an immune herbs to take care of their immune system. Cool, right? Not necessarily a problem, aside from the fact that we're in an overwhelm epidemic. We're overwhelmed with the things we're taking. We're overwhelmed with the amount of information coming at us. We're overwhelmed with so many different things. And so now we're in this situation where you've got a dietary plan to follow. You've got 10 supplements that you need to take to feel better. You don't know how to integrate that. You don't have accountability and support. And then you start back from where you started and you feel stuck and you feel overwhelmed. This is a story I hear in my office all of the time, all of the time. And so this is why I have become absolutely enthralled, obsessed with the foundations of health. This is why I always say everything comes back to 5 to 7 causes of disease. Because again, if you are that person and your energy is crap, we test your cortisol, it's low, your hormones are low, then you're getting brain fog, you're getting more inflammation, you're getting, again, skin changes that are affecting your confidence, you're getting metabolic changes. All of these things are happening because your hormones are low and your energy is low. What are you likely going to do? Right? Well, you're going to restrict further. You're probably going to end up into some nutrient deficiencies. You're going to be more stressed out about your health. Your mitochondria are going to continue to get more and more damaged because chances are you don't have the energy in that moment to exercise. You don't have the willpower, quote unquote, to eat in a way that works for your body because, as we talked about yesterday, cravings is a big part of this, right? The craving for immediate access foods that give your body fuel instantaneously. We have huge amounts of cravings for those types of things when our energy stores are low and our estrogen levels are low and our cortisol levels are dysregulated. So, what is that? That is a loop of dysfunction. We have a patient with low hormones, low energy, right? They're not burning fat as fuel very efficiently. They're not burning nutrients as fuel the way they should. Then their immune system gets involved. They're more inflamed, more brain foggy, more anxious, more cravings. And the cycle continues. The mitochondria further gets damaged. And it's so important that we know this and we're empowered about this because there are so many paths forward. But it starts with fundamentally understanding that this is a critical aspect of health. And I always say, you don't need to know what the electron transfer chain is. You don't need to know what the citric acid cycle is. If you're Googling these things, you're like, this feels a lot, right? But you do need to know that there's 3 to 5 things that you're doing that absolutely are harming your mitochondria. And there's 3 to 5 things you can do that are absolutely going to set you in the right direction. And again, I focus on 3 to 5 all the time because right now everyone is so overwhelmed and we're still very much in this. I think it's actually gotten worse, this pill for an ill kind of like trendy use of very powerful things, very powerful supplements, very powerful dietary regimes, etc., because we are more than ever trying to piece together our own health journey. We are more than ever feeling like there are 10 people with 10 different opinions and we don't know which direction to go. So you take a little bit from A, a little bit from B, a little bit from C, and a little bit from D, and you craft your own plan. That is great. I'm all for empowerment. I'm all for education. I love it. But the risk with that is that if you're taking a little bit from all these places and it's not orchestrated, then you could fix your hormone issue, right? So you could make the brain scream at the ovaries, give it some antioxidants, be like, go, let's do this thing. Okay, wonderful. But we could still have inflammation. So then the moment you lay off that supplement, the core underlying inflammatory event, the core underlying dysbiosis, the core underlying viral infection comes back in, tanks this. And then you're like, I'm right back to where I started, right? You can be in a situation where you focus on self-care. You do a lot of work on energy, morning routine, evening routine. Your sleep is perfect. You're doing all of these things and you feel absolutely no different. And then you come and you're like, this doesn't work. These supplements don't work. This plan doesn't work. But fundamentally, that's like being mad that your car is not driving because there's no gas in the gas tank. No one would logically sit there and be like, I'm so mad at this car. You know what I mean? Like it never works for me. It is always working against me. We see that about our bodies all the time. It is not working for me. I can't do anything right. It doesn't respond for me, all these types of things. But I say this to patients. If there is literally no gas in your gas tank, if the thing that is giving you the energy that you so desire is not something you have ever worked on, then it is an absolute pipe dream. It's a pipe dream to think that you are going to get where you want to go. And so this is where diagnostics and orchestrated plans, one thing that plays into the other, and really resolving these loops of dysfunction is absolutely critical to care. It is critical to care because if you solve one problem and 2 more remain, you will get exactly back to where you started. If you solve sometimes like even 2 problems, destabilize, but then they open up a 3rd problem. If you don't address the 3rd problem, you're going to get exactly back to where you started. And again, this doesn't make anything anyone has done for you in the past bad or wrong, but I can tell you that every single day, I hear people who have lost confidence in their body and their ability to heal. They are just beside themselves, thinking that their life is going to get worse. Their health is going to get worse for the rest of their life because they're quote unquote doing all the right things and not getting results. And it's so frequently that the puzzle pieces are all there. You're just trying to put them together in the wrong order. And so our job, right? My job as a clinician, as I train doctors, as I work with patients, as I train my doctors, is to say, and this is where the AI conversation comes in as well, because everyone's afraid about that right now. It's you already have all the pieces, but the art is how they're put together. The art is where all of that is going to go and how it's going to be implemented and what to do after step 1 and 2, right? Things are resolved, patients are feeling better. It's what to do in that next place. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that it's going to give you some context to take through the rest of the week as we fill in these puzzle pieces, as I said. So have a beautiful day, everyone. And I will talk to you soon.
Today's episode is brought to you by none other than Advanced Women's Health. If you are interested in diving in deeper to your health, if you are finally ready to feel like yourself, and you are finally over hearing everything's normal, everything's fine, and you want a deeper dive into your healthcare, then we are here to help you. We are currently helping patients in British Columbia and Ontario, Canada. But don't worry, if you're in another province, still reach out, get added to the wait list as we expand coast to coast. We cannot wait to work with you. Check out the show notes for more information on how to get started.
All right, we are diving into a topic that is very close to my heart. I think this is one of the most underestimated aspects of health and function and mitochondrial function that we think about. And it's the fact that we have a fair amount of research, like at this point, a pretty good volume of research that suggests that mitochondria are not just supporting energy, supporting digestion, supporting hormones, these things, but they are really having a much bigger and more robust role in confidence, in motivation, in reward, and in all of these other things that we don't think about. And I think it's really important to reflect on that fact. We literally have research to suggest that mitochondria can impact self-confidence, motivation, drive, reward, all of these things. And we are in a society right now where there is a higher rate of diagnosis of ADHD. There's a much higher rate of diagnosis of adult female ADHD than we have ever had or seen before. It is, I did an intensive on it earlier in the year. It is an epidemic, honestly. And since that, we have seen more and more research coming in to solidify and help us understand that, again, nothing happens in isolation. And this is one of the things that I am so passionate about. Nothing happens in isolation. So if we have women that are struggling with PMS, PMDD, they're struggling with motivation, drive, reward. They're struggling with their confidence. They're having hot flashes, night sweats, and poor sleep. They are having more digestive issues, more insulin resistance, weight loss resistance, fatigue, lower resilience. Do you want me to keep going here? Right? Like we see this in our practice. And yet somehow we are still in a place where we are picking apart different systems of the body and saying, okay, well, you need hormone replacement for this, essentially your stimulants for this, right? Because it's not just Ritalin and Concerta. There's all kinds of new ones coming out. So we don't just need that. It's not just nicotinic receptors. It's not just dopamine signaling and reward. It's not just insulin resistance in food. And I think that's where, for me, clinically, I spent so much of my life obsessed with insulin, like obsessed with it personally, professionally, every single thing in the entirety of the world, honestly, can be traced back to insulin. And that is something that was such a huge aspect of my passion, my drive, my clinical practice. It still is to this day. My research focus still is to this day. Here's the thing, though. What I have realized is that there is such a deep loop of dysfunction with other aspects of the body. Because when it comes to insulin resistance and when it comes to what's happening with our blood sugar, we can only make an impact so far as we can implement a plan. And insulin is so deeply involved in motivation and reward systems. This is incredible. This has panned out to be incredibly true in the research. But we're in this situation where if you are getting reward from insulin, right? You're getting reward. And I've talked to so many different people about so many things in this area. You're getting a reward from Instagram and you're scrolling. You're getting a reward from, again, weird social-esque pseudo-social interactions. You're getting a reward from food that is hyper stimulatory. We now have food design labs. Well, not now. We've had them for a very long time. We have these food design labs. And the whole purpose is how to make foods addictive. We have marketing companies. The whole purpose is how to make this product addictive. We have so much pull for our addictive pathways. We have OnlyFans, we have this, we have that. Like there's so many ways to get an instant and immediate access to that reward system. And then we have mitochondrial dysfunction, hormonal dysfunction, histamine issues, receptor resistance, inflammation. Again, insulin resistance plays into this. We have all of these things that are decreasing our reward sensitivity to normal stimuli, right? And so we need more and more from our lifestyle, from what we're seeing, from our, again, high insulin, the way food is designed now. These reward stimuli, the peak reward stimuli are higher and higher and higher and higher. And then we are having less and less sensitivity to normal stimuli because we are in this compromised health state. And I think it's really critical to understand this as providers, to understand this as empowered women, because I hear all the time, Sarah, your plan works perfectly. I can't implement. Right? Sarah, like this is everything you're saying makes sense. And I get about 3 days in and I feel like I crumble and they feel like a failure. And so if you are missing this kind of mitochondrial underpinning, if you're missing one or two of these other aspects of care, then you absolutely, the research has shown, this is not just my opinion, you absolutely will have a different relationship with reward and with focus and with motivation and all of these other things than someone who is in a healthy state. And that is rude. Because, and I laugh because it is bad enough to feel like you have insulin resistance working against you. You have social media working against you. You have, again, these dopamine foods working against you. It is bad enough. It is hard enough, the thought of overcoming that. But then to try to do that when you're coming not just from 0, but like -5 is so overwhelming. And so this is why I harp on about knowing your estrogen levels, no matter what your age, knowing your testosterone levels, your DHEA level, another hormone of resilience, knowing what your inflammatory status is, your insulin status. This is why I harp on about knowing these things. Not because every single treatment I am going to do is targeting one of those things individually. Not because every single piece of this puzzle needs to be treated instantaneously in this moment, but because if you're insulin resistant, if you have wild estrogen fluctuations, if you are exhausted, you have mitochondrial fatigue, if you have all of these things happening, then you are going to need a different type and level of support to dig through that than someone who's coming in who's like, I'm stressed. I've got lots of mental, emotional things happening right now. Work is a lot, kids are a lot, or lack of kids is a lot, like whatever that is playing on your brain. Okay. And my insulin's okay. My inflammation's okay. When my hormones are pretty consistent, it puts you in two completely different camps. And I think it's really critical that we recognize that and we address the totality of that because many people have said, and it's so funny how many people have asked me this question in terms of like, what are you researching? You know what I mean? What are you working on? Because I am always very well known for ripping through a topic, right? Applying it in practice, and like all of our practitioners practice, diving into it and just really seeing massive results. That is what I'm known for, right? Research to clinical to sharing the results. This is what we do. And as much as I've spent the last year really deep in kind of perimenopause research, really deep in the understanding of what's going on in the adult female brain, what's going on with histamine and hormone pathways, so much of it has come back to the fact that we need to understand our patient's starting point and we need to be able to give a treatment plan that is not just appropriate to their physiology, but it is also appropriate to their level of motivation, their level of drive, to how their brain interacts with those things, and to build a foundation of support, of healthy dopamine signaling, of healthy motivation, reward, accountability, and to build that foundational aspect of health so that they can then implement their treatment protocols, get the results, all those types of things. And that's why in advanced women's health, we've moved a lot towards accountability models. We've moved a lot towards small group kind of kickstart programs, towards coming together in small groups, whether that's free or paid sessions. We've moved towards that because you can set the foundation in that moment. You can work through not only the mental, emotional aspects, the community, the accountability, the reward, the drive, understanding yourself, understanding your values, understanding how you work. Are you internally motivated? Are you motivated by a group? What does that look like? And even honestly, we had the summer challenge recently. I use that as a bit of a case study, looking at people who were posting that they have not gotten support, right? Like they have not succeeded. They have not been able to get the results they wanted because they didn't have someone holding them accountable. And then we had other people that were driving forward, doing their own thing, and they would post in like once a week and be like, oh, here's what I did. Okay, those people are very internally motivated. The group was a great anchor, but it's not something they needed consistently. And then we had what I would call a large category of people that did really well when the challenge was small and they were posting initially. But then as soon as they felt like there was accountability to a group, but it was a big group, it was hundreds of people, right? Then they kind of felt like they fell through the cracks. And that is exactly what we see in habit typing and understanding and confidence development in a lot of that research. It's that there's people who do well in a big group and they do actually quite well feeling like they're a piece of the puzzle, but not like the puzzle piece that's being stared at. There's people who are very internally motivated who drive on their own. And then there's people who need a small group, like they would do well in 8, 10 people, right? Like those group environments, because they know that they're getting individual attention, even in this group. And so, what's the point of all of this? The point of all of this and how this loops back to mitochondrial function is if you are struggling with motivation and reward, you are fighting against external sources of hyperstimulation. You don't yet know your accountability style, or you know your accountability style, but you haven't found a way to get that to show up in your life and to create that structure in your life, then everything else we do, all of the things we want to do for insulin signaling, for gut health, all of these different things are going to be blunted. If the potential impact is 10 out of 10, what I have seen in practice over the last decade is that oftentimes the actual benefit is like 4, 5, 6 out of 10. And then from there, we'll see people, okay, trail off and then come back. And then we follow the same cues over and over again. Whereas when I have someone who goes through and they work their way through each step of the protocol, each step, then we're in this situation where their hormones are balanced, their mitochondria has set a foundation, they're making energy, they have confidence in their body, they have confidence that their energy is going to sustain their goals, they have motivation, they have drive. Then we go through and we say, okay, now their insulin again is stable and it is such a foundation. They're able to eat in such a way that they are not just looking for reward from food, they're looking for sustenance from food. They're eating for their health as opposed to eating to try to hit this dopamine threshold that's really hard to reach. We look and we say, okay, then we're addressing inflammation as part of that. And part of that inflammatory pathway is addressing the gut and liver. Then all of a sudden they can absorb their nutrients. Their nervous system is more regulated and has been regulated throughout, but they don't have stressors from blood sugar. They don't have stressors from mitochondrial dysfunction. They don't have stressors from wildly fluctuating hormones. They don't have stressors from inflammation, et cetera. You get my point. And so I feel like we only in this container have a couple of weeks left. And so I think it's really important to start tying some of these pieces back together and understanding that the research is great and the output is great. But at the same time, we need to understand how people are making changes in the context of their day-to-day life and how they're actually able to move through that. And I know I've talked so much in the past about the willpower myth and this and that and the other thing and decision fatigue. All of those are big, huge aspects of health. But the more I have drove into the research and the more that I have applied that clinically in practice, the more I have understood that we don't just need external rewards. We don't just need external accountability. We can't just rely on our body to work efficiently and effectively. We need to have stability and appropriate motivational systems and cascades in the brain. And there's so much that plays into it, but it is such a key piece to success. So I hope that was helpful. I know I went a minute late, but truthfully, this is a topic I am so passionate about because I think for any practitioner who doesn't understand this, for any patient who doesn't understand this, they're really going to struggle in the next few years as we have more information, more protocols, more access to things, because that's not actually the stick. The stick is not more access. The stick is being able to get a reward and stay motivated and be able to take everything you've got going on to the endpoint with the right protocol, with the right person, etc. But for it to be done in such a way that it doesn't feel like you're absolutely climbing the cliff of a mountain every single day. It doesn't have to be that hard, but it does need to be very methodical in terms of how we get people there. So that is the end of my TED Talk. I appreciate you all and have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you had as much fun as we did. And if you loved today's episode, share it with a friend and leave us a review. That is how we spread this message, and that is how we are going to revolutionize healthcare in Canada for women. Have a beautiful day and be well.